The views and opinions of this broadcast do not reflect the views and opinions of Armed Media, New Productions and its affiliates. Enjoy the show.
Tastes just like candy.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Ask for Candy, where we talk about healing, self-care, love, sex, relationships, and what it takes to be amazing on the daily. Who I am is Candace Harper, lovecoach.com, and my purpose with this podcast is to create healthy, romantic relationships all around the world through self-love, soul connections, and sweetness. But before we get to all of that, please take a moment to make sure you subscribe to Ask for Candy on Anchor, iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and wherever you normally download your podcasts. And you can email us at askforcandypodcast@gmail.com to leave comments and ask questions. And any questions you ask might be answered in a later broadcast. But for those of you who've been listening in, you know that for almost 9 years, I have been a relationship coach and a workshop facilitator. I'm also a professional matchmaker with Luma Luxury Matchmaking, a service that brings high-end singles together to find their perfect love. Relationship coaching and matchmaking is my zone of genius, and the best part about it is that week to week, I get to grow and learn as I interact with hundreds of people around the most intimate parts of their lives. I get to take people on their journey from caterpillar to butterfly, unhappy with their love lives or their partners to ecstatic. I get to teach people how to get out of their own way and tap into love as a limitless resource. I also get to hear and answer their questions. Sometimes I have answers. Sometimes I have to do research. But I always get to grow and learn myself. And speaking of growing and learning myself, with me tonight to be a contribution to the conversation is my co-host. He's a self-proclaimed loving husband, father of 6, speaker, podcaster, blogger, and coach. He's the author of Relationship Conversations You Don't Want to Have, But Should Anyway, and 25 Ways to Be Loving. He's a native of Washington, D.C. He has degrees from both Howard and George Washington universities and has embarked upon a fascinating journey to uncover and discover what it means to love and how to discern when we are not being loving. His in-your-face declaration, I want to be loved and accepted in my relationship no matter what I do, and you do too, is a powerful wake-up call to himself and to all of us as we work to create the supportive, empathetic, and mutually fulfilling relationships that we so desperately want. Now, my Frank Love is here with us and excited to answer questions along with me and introduce us all to a loving conversation with the sincere hope that we will be more caring in the world and in our communities, beginning with our romantic relationships. Welcome, my Frank.
Thank you for having me once again. We're back. We're back riding together.
Yeah, I love it. I'm so excited. Are you excited?
I am. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good to have you back. It's good to be back for more convo, more questions, more, filling in the gaps, all that fun stuff that we get to do.
You know, when we talked a few days ago, we both said that could have been a podcast by itself. I never know when we should press record.
I know.
We constantly are at it, figuring something out, working through something. It's a pleasure. It really is.
Yeah, no, it's true. And I think, too, it's like, there are some people, everybody's in their different places as far as like, their life's journey and all of that stuff and how we're evolving. But it is nice to be able to just have a conversation with someone that is around. I mean, I don't know if you're like I am. I obsess over this stuff in the sense that I think about it all the time, but it's just automatic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's nice to talk to someone who kind of seems to have that same, sort of way about it. Is that true? Does that ring true for you that you sort of think about it a lot? Growth?
Oh, I mean, to say the least. And the irony is the things that I think about, it's easy for them to turn into a blog.
Yeah.
I used to blog every week, like 700-word blog. Yeah, I used to do that every week. And then I stopped and went and do my podcast. And then I haven't been doing either for a few years.
Yeah.
And now I'm back to blogging. I even share my blogs with you. Yeah. And so you know some of the stuff that's jumping around in my head. And when I'm really on it, stuff jumps around in my head and then it works its way into my fingertips. Yeah. And I get to typing and going for it and working to figure some stuff out. Because, often writing, I read something one time that said, my writing helps me figure out what I think.
Yes. And
that's real. That's very real for me.
Yeah.
And so I get to ask myself a lot of questions and nuances and then share it with people and hopefully help people. Right. And you've seen some of my stuff.
Yeah, no, and I love your stuff, and I love that it is so thoughtful, and that it's actually a processing of the things that you're thinking about. So that's right in alignment with what you're saying. And I think that because we do walk around, as human beings, we are meaning-making machines, and we do walk around thinking without a lot of times paying attention to what we're thinking. You're right. Like when you write it down, it's like you kind of got to get present and aware of it.
That's right.
Sometimes you find out something that you think is workable, or it's unworkable, or it's crazy, or it's a creative idea or whatever. Yeah.
Or it's only half baked. Yes. And that doesn't mean it's bad. It's just not ready to serve yet.
Yeah.
So you may get something on paper and just let it sit, or I may even be able to send it to you or my editor. And then, when you create the right relationship with people, they can help you work through your own thoughts. It's crazy.
No, it's true.
So, I've seen that. It's happened. Your feedback has been valuable.
Okay.
I'm happy to be at it again. I really am.
That was going to be my next question. Do you feel like a sense of, because I've done that before because when I first started blogging, I was like so serious about it. At minimum, I would do 3 blogs a week. And, I was so committed to it. And then I just fell off for whatever, we're going back 10 years, like just for whatever reason, things would get in the way. But then if I would start again and really get back into a groove with it, it just almost was like a sense of relief. Do you feel like, things have been bottling up and you've been wanting to write, and now that you're doing it again, do you feel like a sense of like, yay?
I definitely feel a sense of relief. But I've never had the ups and downs.
Yeah.
It's I was doing it every week for almost 3 years.
Yeah.
And I never had a week off, it was boom. And then I stopped.
Yeah.
And when I stopped, I just stopped because I started the podcast.
Yeah.
But the love, even when I was doing the podcast, the love was always the blogging, because it really took me to a different place. But the podcasting in its own way was fun too, because I really got a chance to talk to interesting people.
Yeah. And,
I could be standing at a bookstore at the airport and see a book that was interesting and, read a few pages and then, I'll order it or I'll read a few pages and buy it. And then I decide I want to talk to this person.
Yeah.
And I book that person.
I know.
Often.
I noticed that about like some of the guests that you had when I was checking out your old podcast. I was like, you got some good guests. You had some good guests on that show. Well, what were you going to say?
We were rolling at a point. Yeah, we were rolling. Yeah. But even podcasting isn't free.
Yeah.
So there was always a monetary this and that to figure out. And the same thing with blogging. The blogging wasn't free. My having an editor and promoting it, all of that stuff costs. So,
well, now you're back podcasting as well because you're podcasting with me.
That's right.
Right?
But that's not free. Somebody's paying something.
Well, it's very inexpensive. How about that?
Okay. All right. Good.
I wouldn't worry about it.
Okay. But I'm back rolling. I'm back rolling with you, and I'm happy to be here.
I love it. I love having you here. So tonight, I want to do a deep dive into this idea of validation. Right. Because I feel like, I was telling you before, I think last Saturday when we were talking, was reading that book. Well, not really reading it. I was listening to it on Audible. But, when you say you're reading it, it sounds like you're being more intelligent. But I was listening to it on Audible, this book, Menology by Tyrese Gibson and Rev Run. And, I have to admit, I went into this book with a level of skepticism because, I'm like, here are two entertainers, although I do kind of respect a lot of the things that Rev Run says, that he used to tweet or, say on his reality show or whatever. I feel like his heart is in a good place and he does have a level of wisdom. But Tyrese, I was kind of like, okay, what is this like narcissistic R&B singer going to have to say? But he had some prolific things as well. Like both of them had some valuable things within the book. But there was a little part that inspired me to want to talk about validation, because Tyrese talks a lot about men in general needing a lot of validation in a relationship, that's like a big thing for them. And I started to think, well, it makes sense on the one hand, if you think about how sort of old paradigms of gender structure generally are sometimes naturally, that the man is the conqueror and the doer and the provider and all of that. And so it gives him a level of appreciation that he's doing all this hard work for the family. But then I was thinking, I think women need validation on some level as well. Then I started to go into a whole road about like, what is validation and how are we defining it? So I thought that would be a good thing for us to do, kind of define validation. Like, what is our common sort of vision as to what validation in a relationship is?
I'm down to go there with you.
Yeah?
Yes.
Oh, good.
All right, where do we begin?
So how do you define it? So when you think in terms of, you're a married man, self-proclaimed loving husband, which I think is fantastic. So what is your definition of relationship validation?
Validation is a form of, it's in my way of looking at it, it's a synonym for affirmation. It's a way of saying, it is strictly a way of saying you matter.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it. And you get a chance to, and there's so many ways that we get to do that. We can say you matter by, hey, you call me and I answer the phone.
Yeah.
I'm answering this phone because you're my wife and you matter.
Yeah.
It could be you are upset at something, and instead of me brushing off whatever you're upset about, instead of minimizing it, I actually do the opposite. I stop and look at you and I listen to you and I talk to you about whatever it is that you're talking about. And I act as though it matters to me because you matter to me. All of that's validation. And like I said, also affirmation. It's a way of saying you matter.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal because there's so many ways that we tell each other that you don't matter. It's bizarre.
Yeah.
And we get so used to it that it's not even clear to many of us that we're doing it. It certainly wasn't clear to me that I was doing it for a long time.
Yeah.
But we have the opportunity to seize times to say you matter.
Yeah.
And it's not a small thing. It's a really, really big deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I hear that. It's interesting too, because you put a positive spin on the definition that I didn't have at front of mind until you were just talking about it. Because at front of mind for me, and I don't know, I mean, maybe that's why I'm single. Well, front of mind for me was, if you have to validate me, that means I somehow feel like I'm invalid or that I'm gonna think I'm invalid. And that was where I first went to. And not in a resentful kind of way, but I was thinking, is it really a necessary thing? Are we supposed to be worried about whether someone is validating us? But the way you're putting it, it does make sense. Like, that's part of being in relationship, that you let me know I matter.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, that's the thing though. I think what people struggle with, and I know I've struggled with it in relationships, is, to what level are you to expect that validation, and asking for it, or how do you ask for it? And if you're asking for it, does that mean that you're focusing on the fact that it's missing? And is that problematic? Do you know what I mean?
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
What do you think about all that stuff? So like, if I'm like, oh, you don't, it's the old adage where it's like, does my butt look fat in these jeans? Like, that's the kind of stuff I go to when I think in terms of validation. It's like, well, what am I telling myself that I feel like you have to reassure me that my butt looks, fine, or that whatever I'm doing is okay?
Mm-hmm. There's so many ways to go with that question, and you asked a lot.
Yes.
So I guess, if you or my wife say to me, does my butt look fat in these jeans?
Yeah.
My response and full integrity will probably be, and you look beautiful.
Yeah.
And because you're not really asking me if your butt looks fat in these jeans. You're asking me, am I beautiful?
Yeah.
Or how do I look to you?
Yeah.
Do I look okay? Do I look good?
Yeah.
Do you feel good about me? And I'm going to do my best to go straight to the chase of and I could be wrong by all means. But I'm going to go to what I think you're asking and what I think you want. And what I think you want is to be affirmed.
Yeah.
I think you want to know that you are loved and appreciated just the way you are.
So do you feel like it's like Tyrese was saying for men, do you feel like that feeling is as strong, where it's like that need for, because the way he was framing it was in reference to, he had written a song for a woman that he was with, and she really didn't have that big of a reaction to it. And so what I was getting from what he was saying is that it's like the work that men do in a relationship, or the things that they do in order to make it good. Do you as a man feel like you require a lot of validation around that? Like a lot of accolades, appreciation, acknowledgement? Like, do you feel like that's a necessary part of your relationship for you?
It's a balancing act, because I want what I do to connect with you.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, it's funny. Okay, I got to get my blog pad out, because I'm going to end up writing about this. Yeah, there is a difference between appreciating what someone gives you and does for you, and giving them feedback, honest feedback. So if let's say I bring you flowers, but you don't really like flowers. Now, you can say to me, thank you. They're beautiful. And they can be, you can appreciate it, and they can be beautiful. Yeah. Both, you're completely in integrity. But I didn't touch you. Yeah. I didn't really touch your soul, your spirit, the way I wanted to. So there are times when that happens, where I don't touch you, but you've shown appreciation, and then I walk away feeling great about myself, like I did something, and you walk away feeling like, he was thinking about me, and I appreciate him thinking about me. Yeah. But there was something that I could have done that would have just like lit you up, lit your whole soul up. Yeah. And how do you communicate to me that the flowers didn't do it? I appreciated it, but they didn't light my soul up, but I appreciated it. Yeah. Without leaving me feeling like you are an ingrate. Yeah. It's deep. It's deep.
But is that where you would go as a man? Like, as a man, if you brought your wife flowers and she was like, oh yeah, these are nice, thanks, and it wasn't that big, sort of response that you were hoping that it would give, do you walk away feeling like that was very ungrateful? Like, is that the natural?
That's not where I would go. Yeah. Because I want my wife to be able to communicate to me what she really feels. Yeah. And the only way to do that is to give her the leeway to be able to say and to tell me, this is cool. The flowers are cool, but what really does it for me is sneakers. Or, whatever,
Like
whatever.
Yeah,
what really would light me up is to have my feet rubbed or massage. That's what that would absolutely delight me.
Would it? If she, see, here's the thing though, Frank, you are not the common man in that way. Like, I feel like, and this could be me making up a story, because I feel like a lot of times when you tell a man specifically what would be the thing, they sometimes have a little bit of rebellion, a little resistance, like not wanting to be told. Am I making that up? I feel like that's what I've experienced.
So if you've experienced it, you're not making it up, for sure.
Yeah.
Now, okay, where do we go with that? Okay, you're not making it up.
Yeah.
But now what? Okay, so the men showed some resistance. I think that's the word you just used.
Yeah,
to
or rebellion, or like a little bit of like, don't tell me.
Yeah. To you telling him what you really wanted. And that could go all places. It could be a sexual conversation. Yeah. It could be, it could be all kinds of things.
Yeah.
But it really calls into question just the integrity of your relationship and what you guys can talk about.
Mm.
And because everybody can't talk about everything.
Yeah.
So, okay, you tell him what really does it for me is having my back rubbed before sex. And he's like, no, I don't want to do that. I just want to, I don't want to rub your back.
Yeah.
Well, then that's not really simply about sex. That's about so much more. It's about you guys connecting at a much deeper level and being able to talk and being able to share. It's about sex or it's about back rubs, but it isn't. Yeah. It's so much more foundational and fundamental.
Yeah. No, I get that. And it also makes me start to think of like, not just with romantic relationships. I'm someone who's somewhat of a self-proclaimed lone wolf, and I have a hard time, not as much as I used to. I definitely practice it a lot more with telling people things that I want, because I in the past, I've had situations where I tended to sound directive, or I wasn't delivering it in a way that it would land on people in a way that, was appreciated or maybe too demanding, whether it was a romantic relationship or not. But I think that's where the challenge can be in a relationship. And I don't know if it's as much, I don't like to genderize. I guess it depends on the relationship. I was going to say, I don't know if it's as much men for women as it is women for men, but being able to let somebody know that you need, whether it's the validation or the actions that say I matter, or, for them to treat you like you're special. For me, that's a very uncomfortable position to be in, to tell someone that I need those things, because I feel needy. Like, I'm like, I can feel good by myself. You know what I mean? Like, I'm on that.
Yeah.
So I think that brings up what you were saying, brings up the whole, how do you, when you're in a relationship, communicate with someone that you need something without sounding or feeling needy, and, how to frame it so that you can have a conversation and say, well, I would like to have my back rubbed, and in a way that's inviting to that other person where they don't feel like you're telling them what to do.
We're really talking about some deep stuff here.
I know.
What I believe to be the first step in having that conversation is asking someone for their time. Because, when this has come up in my life at different points, it really becomes, okay, all right, I'm saying I would like you to help me with this, and you're pushing back. For whatever your reason for pushback is important for me to acknowledge. There's something going on there where you're not comfortable. And so that's important for me to understand also. It's not just I'm asking for something and you're not giving it.
Yeah.
There's a reason you're not giving it.
Yeah.
And that matters to me too.
Yeah.
So we get to the point where we have to, here's the wild thing. We got to care about one another.
Yeah. That's radical.
Really, it's radical. Right. We have to care about one another.
Yeah.
And once we stop and, okay, I would like, and we gotta, what I call be in the same room.
Yeah.
So if you and I are in the same room and I'm saying I would like my back rubbed and you're saying, I'm busy, I've got this and that to do, I could go somewhere else and get my back rubbed. But then what I begin to learn and notice over the years is when you go somewhere else to get your back rubbed, you end up creating another problem.
Yeah.
And another dynamic to manage and a whole nother. It's just when you go elsewhere, you bring other problems.
Yeah.
But if you stay in the room, what I call stay in the room with that one person where you decide I'm not going to go out of this room. I'm going to stay right here with you and figure this out with you.
Yeah.
I don't know where it's going to take me. I'm going to be frustrated. I admit it. I will probably be frustrated and we are probably going to irritate the hell out of each other, but I'm going to stay right here with you and work to figure this issue out.
Yeah.
That's a real big deal.
Yeah.
And it's because there's no way out.
Yeah.
There's no way out. So back to, you don't want to rub my feet or whatever it is I said I like. You don't want to do that. And instead of me getting frustrated and say, forget you and, go on, do whatever, I just say, okay, all right. And then I switch the focus from me to you.
Yeah.
Okay, how can I support you? What can I possibly do so that you would actually want to rub my feet?
Yeah.
And it may take a year. It may take a long time.
Yeah.
But I care about you.
Yeah.
And whatever it is you're dealing with and going through, I care about that too. So I'm going to take the spotlight off of me and I'm going to put the spotlight on you. And we're going to go at it that way.
I like what you said because, and I think that's exactly what we struggle with when it comes to communication. Like when we want something from someone and they don't want to give it to us, to switch into offering rather than asking, I think can be very effective. And I think that's what you're saying. Am I picking up what you're saying when you say, well, you don't want to do this thing for me. What can I do for you to make you want to do this thing for me?
Or what can I just do for you so that you want to take care of me? How can I take care of you so much where you feel like you want to take care of me?
Yeah.
Like to the point where I'm nourishing you so much that you realize I got to nourish the person who's nourishing me.
Yeah.
Like, and what can I do to make sure I nourish him so that I could keep getting nourished?
Yeah. You know that there's both men and women out there who are like, I ain't doing
that. I've been that man.
Right?
I have been him. Yeah. And so I very well know it.
Yeah.
I've been all too intimate with him.
Yeah.
I have been him. And it's, that's what my familiarity with that dynamic is in a major reason why I do what I do now, because I see it differently.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to see it differently. I think it's very important that we take care of one another.
I agree with that. Now, here's the thing about that, because I think what you're talking about for anybody out there who is in a relationship, who is trying to get something from their partner, and they're even listening and contemplating, oh, well, how can I turn it into me trying to give them something rather than trying to get something? That when you say, oh, it might take a year for it to change over, like, I think that where people's fears often go, and, if I tap into like when I've been fearful about that sort of thing, it's like, people get afraid, they don't want to be taken advantage of. They start to worry that the person doesn't love them as much, or, and also there's a thing where there's a fine line between, I guess I don't want to use the word compromise, but that's the word that keeps coming up. Like being so self-sacrificing that you, because I do believe we still have to put ourselves first. Like you have to get yourself into a mind state to give, right? But being so self-sacrificing with someone who is not engaged with you in that way, like, how long do you do that for before you're like, okay, there's no engagement happening. There's no, you know what I mean? It's like, it's just me saying, what can I do for you? What can I do for you? What can I do for you? Do you know what I mean?
I do. And okay, so I'm making 2 notes right now. One is on the word sacrifice, and then I just wrote down 30 years. And if you and I, I'm 48. And so if I was dealing with a sister who did not like something about me, she's got to deal with 48 years of history.
Yeah.
There's a reason why I do whatever the hell I do. And it's 48 years, most likely, is 48 years have led me to where I am right now.
Yeah.
Now, you could care about that or you cannot care about that. That's your conversation with yourself and with how much you want to deal with whatever a partner brings to the table. But you think about how to undo or change or what's a good word to use? Undo, change, tweak. 48 years of conditioning. It may very well not happen in a year. It may take 10 years.
Yeah.
And so are you up for that? I mean, and that's really just a conversation of how much you're up to being in a relationship.
Yeah. Or in that relationship. Don't you think sometimes it's like, and this is like, I know I'm walking a fine line here because I have had relationships that clearly they've ended, right? So it's like, a lot of times the decision is, how long do I want to be trying to do this in this relationship?
Yeah. I mean, that can be, but you also get to look at what's working, what's not. Yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of questions you can ask yourself. And there's always a way out.
Yeah.
I mean, there's always a way out of your relationship. I promise you. You can come up with a good excuse.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
And there's always a reason to stay. You just got to figure out what works for you.
Yeah.
And so the other word that I jotted down was sacrifice, and that is a word that I personally never use as it pertains to relationships.
Yeah.
This is something I blogged about 10 years ago. And it's the difference between sacrifice and investing in a relationship. They're small. The substance is small, but the spirit is big. And so I've never heard a person say they sacrifice for a relationship without trying to guilt the other person. I've never heard it, but I have. And so I have heard, or I've digested the concept of investment.
Yeah.
With investment, we can invest time, money, whatever it is we want to invest, with the intention of getting a return, with the understanding that we could take a loss.
Yeah.
But we invest anyway.
Yeah.
And, excuse me, we hope for the best.
Yeah, yeah.
And we invest in the thing that we think is going to pay off.
Yeah.
But when we say we sacrifice for something, we are trying to get the other person to feel bad and to feel the weight of it all. And I don't do that. It's a form of being manipulative as far as I'm concerned.
No, that makes sense. And I do think there is a level of, like, when you use the word sacrifice, there's a level of feeling like whatever you've given, you've lost. Right? Like you've given something up. So that, I mean, that does make sense. And I feel like it is a disempowering word that a lot of people use in relationship, not just romantic relationships, but even, my mom used to say all the time, I sacrifice so much for y'all.
Right.
That was her favorite thing to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I do get that. And I like the framing of it that it is an investment, because I think everything that we give into a relationship is an investment. But then it's like, when do you, get to recognize, not get to, but when do you, if there is no return on the investment, like, you know, how do you know when is going to be the time where you're like, okay, there's just no return on this investment? Like there's just,
right. You gotta determine what game you're playing. Yeah. You're gonna play the short game or you're gonna play the long game, and you gotta have a conversation. When I say you got to, I don't mean you got to nothing. Yeah. It's just a colloquial term. I don't mean you have to, got to. You get to. You get to make the choice to.
Yeah.
We get a chance to have a conversation with ourselves, and that conversation is okay. We've been in a relationship for 3 years. I get to have a conversation with myself 3 years ago when I decided to be in this relationship, and I can say, why did I engage? And what was my intention when I engaged? Was my intention to be in this relationship for 5 years? And it might be. And that's cool.
Yeah.
Is it to be 10 years? And it might be, and that's cool. Is it to be for till death do us part? Is it whatever it is? What was my intention when I started? And that gets to guide me along the way. Yeah. Because if 3 years ago I set a personal intention after getting to know you, however long I decided that needed to be, I got to experience you and see how you problem solve, how you talk to the waiter, how I got to see you in different. Say that again.
How you navigate through life. How you
navigate through life. Yeah. I got to see that based on my own criteria, and I got to say to myself, nobody else, all right, I'm going to be with her I'm gonna commit to this relationship for 5 years. And if that's the case, at the 3-year mark, I don't have any business questioning whether I'm going to stay in this relationship, because that's really just a conversation that I'm having with myself 3 years ago.
Yeah.
When I could, instead of me bouncing around whether I should stay in this relationship, whether I was sensical back then, I could be thinking about the creative ways I can invest in this relationship and tweak the dynamic that I'm not satisfied with.
Yeah.
I could be doing that. Or if I'm going to be in it 10 years or a lifetime, I could be wiping out the entire conversation about, well, what about this? Maybe I shouldn't, this. I could wipe that completely to the side and say, all right, no, I'm here. And the question is now, how do I change my perspective? How can I do this differently? What can I be creative about? Who can I talk to help me gain some skills around dealing with this? I could be doing all of that.
Yeah.
So it just depends on what game you're playing. It really is just that simple to me.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. Do you think there's any gender difference in that in approaching that? And I say that from a space of, you know, as people of color coming from up color culture, you know that there's a lot of story around with women not getting used. Like, you're not supposed to sleep with nobody too soon, especially it comes from, like, I feel like Black Christian culture as well. Like, you're not supposed to, why buy the cow? He could get the milk for free. There's a lot of, like, shaming, letting men use you, that men will use you, I feel like is a pervasive, disempowering mindset in our culture as well. But do you think that what you're talking about, being able to be in the relationship, committed to what I say I'm committed to, and showing up no matter what that person is doing, just by my own promise to myself, do you think that there's any difference between the genders as to how that can be navigated, or do you think there needs to be?
I think we're all punks.
Yeah.
If we're gonna talk general, there's so much punknology in all of us, so much copping out.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's so pervasive. I wouldn't attribute it to more one sex than the other.
Gotcha.
I really wouldn't. We all troubled. Yeah. We got our issues. We got our stories. We got our conversations. The things we say we're not going to stand for. Both sexes got it. Both sexes are full of shit. You know, if I can curse, I don't know.
You can.
We're struggling together.
Yeah,
we really are. And as much as we understand we're struggling together, again, when I want my back rubbed because I'm struggling and you're resistant to it, I get to see your struggle and care about it.
Yeah.
And then stop worrying about my back being rubbed and actually worry about what it is you're dealing with and show care to it and generosity and love.
I love that, Frank. I feel like I love that. Like, I think you're right. I mean, I think that is sort of the crux of it all. Why people, who do happily stay together, healthfully stay together, do, because they know how to find those moments to do that. Like to put you before me in the moment, or to let go of my agenda long enough to be receptive to yours and what I can do for you. Yeah, I love that. I do. I mean, how do we spread the word so wide that, because I honestly, being right now in, as a matchmaker specifically, because I'm dealing so much with single people and, having been purposely single for as long as I have since my last relationship, the one thing that I feel like that's really pervasive is it just seems like so many of us are out here. What's in it for me? What's in it for me? What am I going to get out of it? And I think that even when we do get into relationships, that's the exact attitude that we take into the relationship. That's what I took into my last relationship, and it didn't last, right? That's what I feel like he might have taken as well. And so I think, it's like, how do we transform that, where it's like, I think we were talking about it in the first show that you were on about, how did we frame it? Because we were talking, the win-win, like if I do for you, or if you win, we both win if we're in a partnership or whatever. How do you get to reframe that you understand that that's what, even in the dating phase, it's like, if I'm giving in the dating phase, if I'm looking to share myself and bring my best self and offer, rather than what are you bringing to the table? Are you checking all my boxes? Like, how different the experience can be. Yeah.
I suspect you're raising another issue that I'm probably going to blog about in the next few days. Okay. And that's the difference in being a short-term and long-term investor. And, it's just, we talk about that in terms of money and stock market or, real estate, that kind of thing. But it's real in relationships. Yeah. There are people who are interested in being a short-term investor. Yeah. And if I put on my humble hat and my respectful hat, I have to be respectful to those people. Yeah. Where if you want to be a short-term investor, there are people who've made millions of dollars being a short-term investor. Yeah. And that's cool. You could do that. But then there are people who are interested in the long-term investment, the long game. And if you're interested in the long game, it's a different mindset than interested in the short game. Yeah. And so if I experience you and you demonstrate to me you're a short-term person, I get to respect that and not poo-poo on it at all. Like 100% respect that. Yeah. And just call it what I see it as being. But if I'm interested in the long game, where, they say you put your money in a mutual fund and you watch it grow over years to come, versus day trading, very different. There have been people who've made lots of money doing both, but there have also been people who's lost their shirt. Yeah. And you're more likely to lose your shirt being a day trader than you are to lose your shirt long-term investing. So in a mutual fund. So it's up to you to just determine what game you're playing. Yeah. And it's also up to you to be able to discern what game another person is playing and be respectful to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Like if they're not on your same wavelength, that's okay.
That's fine. It's perfectly fine. Yeah. Yeah. Just different investment styles. That's all.
Yeah. I love that the topic of validation brought us here.
Isn't that something?
Yeah. And I like that analogy of it as an investment, right? So, what you're putting in I say this like very carefully, like what you're putting in has the potential to have great return.
Yes.
More so if you're not expecting that great return. But yeah, I think that's a great analogy for it. So what do we want to sort of be the takeaway for people as far as, let's say I'm in a relationship, or let's say I'm single, and, I really have a sense of sadness, or I'm worried about what I'm going to get out of love and why love's not working out for me, or why my partner's not being who I want them to be, and how I'm going to get from them what I want to get. Like, what do we want to be sort of like the takeaway first step to sort of transform that and to have a different experience than that? Because I feel like that's the experience a lot of people are having. I'm not getting what I want. Right? Like, I feel like that's a pervasive mentality in our culture. I'm not getting what I want.
I'm not getting what I want.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, man. I really go to the heart of what we're talking about. Like, are you being loving to your partner?
Yeah.
Are you demonstrating care? And there's a big difference between loving somebody and being loving to someone.
Yeah.
Like, being loving is an action. It's shown in how you conduct yourself throughout the day, every day. Loving somebody, you could love somebody and, not be able to stand them and, spit at them when it's all kinds of craziness we do under the guise of loving somebody. But if I say, whoa, Candy, are you being loving or you just love them? I mean, maybe that would get you, maybe that give you something to pause and ask yourself, am I being loving right now?
Yeah.
Versus, do I just love them?
Yeah.
If there's anything I want to give to ride with, I think that's it.
Yeah, I love that. I love that because that automatically, and I'm a big believer in this. When I'm feeling like I'm in a moment of focusing on the negative, or looking at the lack, or letting myself go into depression or sadness, it's a perfect moment to reflect and ask myself a question. Like, who am I being? Yeah. And I love that you said that. Am I being loving, or am I just, like, saying I love someone is very different than actually showing actions.
That's right.
Behaviors, that align with love. I love that, Frank. Love.
Hey, I mean, we mixing this soup up together.
Right? No,
this is our gumbo.
It is. It's got chunks in it. It's good. All right, so I wanted to do, and this might be something that we regularly do if you want to, matchmaker questions, because every week I get questions from clients around different things, right? And so I thought it would be fun to just entertain, one of the questions and kind of get your take on what your answer would be. And I'll give my take on what my answer would be to this question. But I had a client ask me today, and she's a lovely woman. And I think, a lot of times there's a little shame around being single with women in particular. I don't know about with men or not. But she said that her date, who was enamored of her, he was head over heels. But at one point he asked her, why are you still single? Or why are you still single? And she didn't know how to answer it. She's like, how do you answer that question on a date? Like, how do you, what do you say to people when they're saying that? What do you think about that, Frank? What do you think is the...
Oh man, there's no, I've heard people say, I don't know how to answer that. But that's, under that is a belief that there's a way to answer it. Yeah. And there's no way to answer a good question.
Yeah.
You just, how does it land on you? How does it feel? And then answer it based on whatever comes up. Yeah. Whatever comes. I mean, you could tell a story. Hey, I was married. It worked for 10 years. It stopped working at that point. One of the things that we bumped heads about was this, and this. And now I've exited that relationship, and I'm just the woman sitting in front of you right now, and I don't know much more than that. I'm just here trying to figure out life.
Yeah.
I mean, ain't nothing complicated about just answering the question, and not in a way where you feel like you're in a certain type of job interview. And I say certain type of job interview because some people believe that there's a way to answer a question in a job interview, and some people don't. They just answer the question. Yeah. You know, you ask me a question, I'm gonna tell you what I think, and shit, we're interviewing each other. Yeah. You know, you asking me how why I'm single says as much about you as it does about me.
Absolutely.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just, you know, this is what's interesting to you, and here's my answer. Yeah. And you know, we can jive or not. And all of that's fine. Yeah. And the same thing in a job interview. You can ask me something and I could answer any way I want. And I may get the job. I may not get the job. You may want me. I may not want you. I may want you. You may not want. It's all okay because we're learning. We're simulating our dynamic. And we're simulating what we think our dynamic will be down the road. Mm-hmm. But the truth is, we're having our dynamic right now.
Yeah, yeah.
Like this is it. This is the relationship right this minute. Yeah. And whatever it is we say, do, will determine whether you want to be around me, I want to be around you, we want to be around each other. And we may not want any of that. We may want all of that. We may want whatever. Just enjoy the moment. Yeah. Enjoy the moment.
No, I agree with that. And I think that part of I've always believed in enjoying the moment, but I think part of what sometimes can get in the way is when we have an idea that something has to be negative, right? So like if someone were to ask me that question, it's like there was a time where I would go straight into like a negative, like it's a pejorative, like you're calling me single. What do you mean I'm single? You know what I mean? As if you're calling me a bad name or something. And I think you're right in the sense that, yeah, you want to answer naturally, but you also want to be aware of like, well, what are you making single mean? Right? When someone says that to you. And a lot of times people mean it as a compliment because they're like, you're so great. How is it that you're still single? You know, and sometimes people, they might be saying it because they're trying to be funny or shady or whatever. But I think it can only affect us to the level at which we feel, if we feel not confident about it, or if we feel like, to me,
that's right.
Right? To me, single is a stage of life. And I always say we're all just a death, a divorce, a cheating scandal away from single. Like, what does that mean? Right?
I just thought of something. Imagine him asking her, and I'm assuming it was a him. Yeah. You said it was a her. Imagine him asking her that, and she came back and said, I'm single because I knew that you would want to go out with me, and I just wanted to give you the opportunity to do that.
Right? If she liked him, that would be.
If I liked you, yeah. I mean, that's why I'm single.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah. I think that's a great answer because it's
having fun.
Yeah.
If it's true, if it's what popped into your head at the time, not that you heard me say it, but that's shit. That's why I'm single, right? Because this moment was supposed to happen. Period.
Yeah, I love it because it's very confident and it has a little levity to it, and it and it's flirtatious at the same time, right?
Yeah,
like you can totally say that if you actually like the person. Also, you could just say that there's not really a reason. It's just a stage of my life right now. Like this is what it is.
Absolutely.
And that's okay. Yay, Frank! Is there anything that you want to plug for the people, and you want to tell them how to find you?
You can find me each week at my sister Candy's podcast.
Yes.
That's where I'm going to be. I want you to listen to her, check her out. Oh. If you want matchmaking, she is the cream of the crop. And I mean, you can also, if you want, you can check out my website, frank-love.com. And I'm blogging again soon. And I'm talking about like in the next few days. So check me out. I mean, you can sign up to get my blog. And I look forward to interacting with y'all, and definitely you, Candy. I mean, we talk.
We chop it up, honey. We chop it up.
Right.
I love it.
It's a pleasure. Period.
Yeah. Well, I love that you're here. Thank you for being here. And I have to say, because I've had the pleasure of reading a couple of your blogs so far, I'm very excited for when you start regularly publishing again. And are you going to be putting them on the website?
Oh, definitely.
Okay. So you can go there and be checking them out. I think it's fantastic. I'm very excited for all that we're going to create, all that we're creating right now. Right? I've actually been working on, I'm doing my new website where I'm putting everything together. So the Epic Circle is going to be coming back soon. And I just decided today that I'm going to split out the courses. So I have an Epic Circle course that's about the mother-daughter relationship. I have an Epic Circle course that's going to be all about forgiveness. And there was another thing that I had as a topic. I was thinking about doing like a matchmaker course on the side too, but the Epic Circle is going to be coming back, and, I'll be giving the link and the information for that very soon. And that's it, I think. On Instagram, you can follow us, Ask for Candy Podcast, and you can follow me at Candy Love Coach. Do you do Instagram or anything, Frank?
I don't. I need to. I will soon. I can't get around it. No, I never did get into Twitter and all of that kind of stuff. I am not a social media person. I just want to sit around and write when I want to write. It's coming. I can't help it. It has to happen.
Well, I feel like you would be a great tweeter. Like, I'm not that great on Twitter. I kind of use Twitter to just link to, maybe a blog or a newsletter or something. But you have a lot of like 1 or 2 line nuggets that I think would be really great for Twitter.
All right. We'll see.
Yeah. Why not? It's the wave of things.
Yeah.
Where everybody's hanging out.
We'll keep talking. We'll keep talking.
We'll grow that out. Also, everybody, you can subscribe on Anchor, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you get your podcasts, and subscribe so you can be notified to listen to us weekly. And you can always just come and sign up for my newsletter as well, and you'll get notification to listen to us weekly. And that's it. Questions, comments, send them to askforcandypodcast@gmail.com. Frank, is there anything that you want to say to the people before I sign off?
Hey, be loving to your partner.
Yes.
Period. Let that be your focus. I promise you will get a return.
Yes, I love that. And if you don't have a partner, be loving to yourself.
Always.
Right? So until next time, never forget that you are a love machine. If you ever start to feel like you aren't getting the love you need, just make more and ask for candy. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Bye, everybody. Bye.